All right, welcome. This video is for lesson 5.2 day 1 or 4.2 day 1 Punnett Squares. You can see I got the split screen going on here. I'm just going to walk through every single slide and read every single thing for you. Warm-up question. Think back or look back to lesson 5.1 day 1. Explain the difference between the dominant and recessive allele. Explain phenotype and genotype. So you can type your answer in over on the documents. See, the dominant alleles are written using capital letters. Recessive alleles are written using a lowercase letter. And the difference between genotype and phenotype. Phenotype is a trait. A genotype is the two letters, the two alleles that describe what the phenotype will be. Move to the next slide. Students will be able to show how genetic information is passed from parents to offspring by using a Punnett square. All right, here's a nice picture of a Punnett square. We have a dominant red male and a recessive homozygous blue female. And all the babies, 100% of them will be red, since the dominant red will be the gene that shows up. All right, the Punnett square. This is slides 4 through 8, page 82 in your book. Punnett square, a tool that can help you grasp how the laws of probability apply to genetics, is called a Punnett square. A Punnett square is a chart that shows all possible alleles, all possible ways alleles can combine in a genetic cross. So our notes over here is a chart used to help predict the possible genotypes and phenotypes of offspring. Geneticists use Punnett squares to see these combinations and to determine the probability of a particular outcome or result. In a genetic cross, the combination of alleles that parents can pass to an offspring is based on probability. All right. So here's the note. How are Punnett squares used to predict patterns of heredity? Punnett squares, a chart used to help predict the possible genotypes and phenotypes of offspring. All right. Here's a nice GIF of different ways Punnett squares mix. And it shows the phenotype and genotype, and it shows the probability of each. There's several of these here. So it's mixing. This one is a hairy with a hairless. And 50% will be hairy, and 50% will be hairless. The Punnett square will tell you the possible outcomes. Here is a hairy and a hairless. And because this hairy one on top is a homozygous dominant, all of them are going to be hairy. All right, let's go on to the next slide. All right, so here is a instructions on how to do a Punnett square. You start by drawing a box and dividing it into 4 corners. So here it is, box of 4 corners. Step 2, the male parents' alleles are written along the top of the square, and the female parents are written on the left side. So this example, we're doing a capital R, lowercase r, and that is heterozygous dominance. All right, step 3, copy the female parents' alleles into the boxes to the right. To the first one is done for you. So the female is heterozygous dominant, capital R, lowercase r. We're going to write this R in the first box, and then the second box to the right. Then the lowercase r in the first box, and the lowercase r in the box to the right. Step 4, copy the male parents' alleles into the boxes beneath them. So this capital R is going to go down, down. This lowercase r will go down, then down again. Step 5, the completed square shows all the possible allele combinations the offsprings can have. So in this combination, there will be 1 dominant homozygous, 2 dominant heterozygous, and 1 recessive homozygous. All right, active listening. How can 2 parents with brown eyes have a child with blue eyes? Well, let's watch.
Dear Tim and Lovey, my parents both have brown eyes, but mine are blue. What's going on? From Cairo. Well, I've Bet there are blue-eyed people somewhere in your family tree. Eye color is just one of many physical traits we inherit from our parents. That passing of traits from parents to offspring is known as heredity. But remember that parents inherit traits from their parents, and so on, as far back as your family tree can go. Let's look at some pea plants to see how it all works. Yes, pea plants. Every living thing inherits traits. Back in the 1800s, a monk named Gregor Mendel used pea plants to study how traits like height, color, and shape are inherited. When Mendel crossed short plants with tall plants, he noticed that only tall plants were produced. Whatever produced these short plants seemed to disappear. Mendel called that tall height trait the dominant factor because it dominated or covered up the short height form. He called the short height trait the recessive factor. By the second generation of pea plants, those recessive short plant forms cropped up again. After tons of research, Mendel was able to predict that, on average, 1 out of every 4 pea plants would be short. Each plant has 2 genes that determine height. The tall gene, represented here by a capital T, is dominant, which means it only takes 1 of these genes to make a plant tall. It takes 2 short genes, represented by a lowercase t, to make a plant short. In the 19th century, a British geneticist named Reginald Punnett also experimented with peas and developed something called the Punnett Square. Among other things, this Punnett Square lets you predict the likelihood of what you would get if you crossed a tall plant with a short plant. An offspring gets 1 gene from each parent, either a tall or a short gene. Each plant produced by these 2 plants will be tall because each one has one of those dominant tall genes. But what happens if 2 of these new plants produce offspring? There are lots of ways this could turn out, but the most likely result is that we get 3 tall plants and 1 short one. Mendel only figured this stuff out after carefully studying 30,000 individual pea plants over an 8-year period. Well, I guess it's pretty reasonable to assume that he had peas for dinner every night. I think you're missing the point. Moby.
All right, but it looks like Moby really, really likes peas. That's awesome. All right, so for the active listening question, it says, how can 2 parents with brown eyes have a child with blue eyes? Well, a good answer for that is if both parents are heterozygous for blue eyes and they both pass the recessive gene to blue eyes. Looks like something's cut off here. And they both pass the recessive blue eye gene to the baby. All right, I have to fix that formatting, but no big deal for now. All right, next slide. Probability. So this is slide 10 through 12. Probability is a number that describes how blank it is that an event will occur. Let's see if we can figure out the missing word. What is probability? Each time you toss a coin, there are 2 possible ways to find, or 2 possible ways it can land, heads up or tails up. Probability is a number that describes how likely it is that an event will occur. Here we go. How likely it is that an event will occur. Let's keep reading. In mathematical terms, you can say that the probability that a tossed coin will land heads up is 1 in 2. There's also a 1 in 2 probability that the coin will land tails up. A 1 in 2 probability is expressed as the fraction 1/2 or 50%. The laws of probability predict what is likely to occur, not what will occur. If you toss a coin 20 times, you may expect it to land heads up 10 times and tails up 10 times, but you may get 11 heads and 9 tails, or 8 heads and 12 tails. The more tosses you make, the closer your actual result will be to those predicted probabilities. Do you think that the results of one toss affect the results of the next toss? Not at all. Each event occurs independently. Suppose you toss a coin 5 times and it lands heads up each time. What is the probability that it will land heads up on the next toss? If you said the probability is still 1 in 2 or 50%, you are right. The results of the first 5 tosses do not affect the results of the 6th toss. Probability and genetics. How is probability related to genetics? Think back to Mendel's experiments. He carefully counted the offspring from every cross. When he crossed 2 plants that were hybrid for stem height, capital T, lowercase t, about 3/4 of the F2, that's the second generation plants, had tall stems. About 1/4 had short stems. Each time Mendel repeated the cross, he observed similar results. He realized that the principles of probability apply to his work. He found that probability of a hybrid cross producing a tall plant was 3 in 4. The probability of producing a short plant was 1 in 4. Mendel was the first scientist to recognize that the principles of probability can predict the results of genetic crosses. So how is probability related to inheritance? What are the chances? A Punnett square does not say that each set of parents are going to have 4, 16, or 64 children. Instead, a Punnett helps to find out the probability or chance of each child having a certain trait. Probability is a number that describes how likely it is that an event will occur. We got that already over here. All right, so we're going to do some example Punnett squares in slides 13 through 19. These are a lot of fun. All right, so the first one is if round is dominant to wrinkled, cross a homozygous round pea plant with a homozygous wrinkled pea. So the mix will be capital R, lowercase r, lowercase r. So on my document over here, the father will be on top, capital R, and the female will be on the side, lowercase r, lowercase r. All right, so I'm gonna mix these, and this will get a capital R from the top and a lowercase r from the side. This one here will go to capital R from the top and a lowercase r from the side. This one will go to capital R on top and a lowercase r from the side. And again, same capital R from the top and a lowercase r from the side. All right, so we need to figure out the probability of the results. So all 4 of them are capital R, lowercase r. So all 4 of the genotypes will be capital. So we can write that in as 100% capital R, lowercase r. The phenotypes, well, the round is dominant, so all of these are going to be round. So the phenotype is 100% round. All right, excellent. Let's move on to the next Punnett square. Oh, and this shows you what it looks like here. This is the answer on the slide. All right, example number 2. I'm going to do that here. If green peas are dominant to yellow peas, cross 2 heterozygous green peas. All right, so the father will be on top of the chart, capital G. Then the other allele is lowercase g. And the mother's on the side, lowercase capital G, then lowercase g. All right, so the first one, we're going to mix the top and the side, capital G. Same here, the top and the side, capital G. This one's going to be a capital G, lowercase g. And, oh, I messed up. It should be capital lowercase. So this one capital from the left and lowercase from the top. And this one is 2 lowercase g's. All right, so now we got to figure out the percentage of the genotypes and the percentage of the phenotypes in this section here. Well, there's 25% capital, 50% capital lowercase, and 25% lowercase. So it should look like this. And then the phenotypes, well, the green is dominant, so that's a capital G. So there's going to be 3 out of the 4 are going to be dominant, and 1's going to be the recessive. So there's going to be 3 yellow and 1 green, and that can be written as 75% green and 25% yellow. This one's green here, this one's green, this one's green, and this one is yellow. All right, awesome. We got one more example to do together, and it's example 3. If tall T plants are dominant to short T plants, lowercase t, cross a heterozygous tall plant with a short plant. So remember, heterozygous means different. So it's going to be a capital then a lowercase. And then with a short plant, so the short plant is going to be the recessive, so it has to be both lowercase alleles. All right, so we're going to mix this, capital T, lowercase t. This one's lowercase t, because it goes one from the top, one from the side. This one is capital T, lowercase t. And on the right, we've got 2 lowercase t's. All right, now we need to figure out the percentage of genotypes and the percentage of phenotypes. Well, there are two capital T lowercase t's and two lowercase t's. So that's 50% of each. So 50% capital lowercase, 50% lowercase. But then what is the phenotype? Well, remember up here the pea plants are tall or short. So it's going to be 50% tall and 50% short because it's 50% dominant and 50% recessive. All right, Kate, so that brings us to the wrap-up question. What is a Punnett square, and how can they help show how traits are passed from parent to offspring? All right, a Punnett square is a chart that is used to help predict the possible genotypes and phenotypes of offspring by showing the probability of possible outcomes. And we will type in our answer here. There is an extension, a website. This might look familiar. It's the one we looked at in the previous lesson. This is Concept 5. I'm not going to go through this in the video. If you want to do this, you can do this on your own. There's a second extension, thinking. Do you think that the two creatures with mouse ears, lowercase r, kept a baby with elephant ears? Why or why not? And the answer to that is no. There are no dominant genes for the elephant ears present in the mix of lowercase r with lowercase r. Question 2, how can two creatures with elephant ears have a baby with mouse ears? Well, here's the answer down here in the bottom right. If parents are both dominant heterozygous for elephant ears, capital R, lowercase r, then there's a 25% chance that they could have an offspring that is homozygous recessive lowercase r with mouse ears. All right, and that actually looks a lot like this chart here, but with R's instead of Y's. And this is actually the answer to the first extension. So if you're looking for the answer for that, who invented the Punnett square? Reginald Punnett and William Bateson. When two heterozygous organisms cross, what is the ratio of phenotypes? What's 3 to 1? Just draw a Punnett square to illustrate the ratio from number 2. And that is shown here. And the genotype ratio is 25% dominant homozygous, 50% dominant heterozygous, and 25% recessive homozygous. The phenotypes, 75% yellow and 25% green. All right, if you have any questions, please ask your teacher. Thank you.